Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel Clark for another episode of Wuxia Workshop. And today we're going to be talking about the 1985 movie Journey of the Doomed. This is a Cha Chuen-yi film. It stars Stephen Tung, Alex Mann, Kara Hui, Candice Yu, and Margaret Lee. It's an interesting movie. It's not a film that I don't know, Joel, do you want to give a quick breakdown of the plot? Are you comfortable enough describing
what? I can, man. Okay, so imagine if that movie that Kiss made was made in China and it didn't even have that much presence or unity of writing. There you go. That's the movie.
So, yeah, and in terms of plot, it's basically it's sort of standard wuxia fare with a little bit of a twist. Basically, there's a woman who's raised in a brothel as a servant, I believe, and she's forced to flee when a series of events arise that lead to it being discovered that she is a real princess, and there's two teams set out by two rival princes who are presumably involved in some sort of strategic game with one another over the throne. And one of the teams is sent to kill her. One of the teams is sent to bring her to the other prince, if I follow the plot correctly. And in the middle of it,
and she kind of is a fisherman, and everything goes wrong.
Well, and so the fisherman thing is so rather than rescued by the kung fu hero, she is rescued by the man who doesn't know any kung fu and is kind of a little like just a regular guy, basically, right? So that's sort of the big twist to the film, and it does. I don't know. So that's the plot. And her and the fisherman go and live together in the woods for a while, and then the bad guys and good guys. I'm sorry?
They eat a lot of eggs.
Yeah, they eat a lot of eggs. The bad guys and the good guys catch up with them, and then we're sort of ushered into the climax where, spoilers, the heroic couple, no, the non-heroic couple, die in an explosion together. Long after the bad guy's been killed. It's completely unclear to me how, it's a really weird ending. I forgot just how unusual the ending is in terms of you can't understand who's fighting with who and why at what at a certain point. It's very ridiculous.
Yeah, there comes a point when the bad guy's been defeated and dying for several minutes, and they're still fighting, and no one's motivation is clear, and that can't just be a translation error. It's just not there. They don't tell you.
Yeah,
there are so many plot threads dropped in this movie. It's such a mess.
And the drop plot threads are honestly the least concerning of all of its problems, right? Because I could deal with they forgot to follow that thread, but there's again this is I think my second time watching it. The first time I watched it, I reviewed it, and I'm pretty sure I gave it a bad review, but I might have had a caveat I'm in a bad mood, so I don't want to be too critical of this film.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm in a bit of a bad mood too, but you know what? Nothing. This could have been the best day of my life, and this movie would have ruined it.
Yeah, no, I was trying to be very fair to it this time, and I was like, well, it does take some risks, right? It has the guy that doesn't know kung fu be sort of the one who rescues the princess, and it sort of has a sword and sorcery vibe that it tries to apply to the film. The aesthetic is very sword and sorcery, even though there's no real discernible magic or any kind of.
Well, except when there is a tonally once or twice.
But it's still kind of mostly wuxia magic, right? For the most part.
You know what? If you had told me about this movie that every 20 minutes of in-movie time, a whole new director and writer showed up to get the next 20 minutes done through the entire runtime of the movie, I wouldn't even be moderately surprised. I'd be like, yeah, no, okay, that seems like what just happened.
So I noticed things about the film that had a lot of promise to them. Do you know what I mean? This time around, and I noticed a lot of things. I was like, "Ooh, that was a cool idea," but that just made me hate the film more because I realized this really should have been a great film. This shouldn't have been a bad movie, but it was because of how it was handled, I think, by the director. So I'll just give a couple of examples. Number one, the fact that the couple die in an explosion together at the end of the movie should have been an incredibly moving moment in the film, right? That's the sort of thing.
We shouldn't have been confused about why they chose to do that.
Yeah, and it should have had emotional heft. It had none, and it just kind of came out of nowhere because it wasn't like they didn't choose to go to this tower for any clear reason. They were running away from people that were basically trying to help them. So
when they get to the top, they literally are like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have gone up here. Well, time to die." Like even they are completely baffled by their choices.
And there's
was there no point when someone wrote that piece of dialogue where they thought, "Wait, why did they put it down?" Apparently not. No doubt. They must have been shooting the same day they wrote it, Ed Wood style.
I don't know what was going on, but some of the other things I noticed too is the actors all seem to be doing a really good job with the fight choreography for the most part, and their physical performances were fine. I'm assuming the action director was fine, but the camera was doing everything in its power to prevent you from seeing the good performances. Do you know what I mean? Like I could see. What was that?
Twice during this movie, they do this thing where a really good, promising fight starts. Then they hard cut over to somewhere away from the fight, where the other characters who can't fight turn to each other and say, "Hey, while they're fighting, let's leave."
Yeah.
And the camera follows them on two different occasions.
And it wouldn't be so bad, like, because I understand, okay, maybe the point of this movie is it's about the non-kung fu guy. It's about the non-martial hero, right? And so that's why the martial heroes are in the background while they're talking or something. But it just wasn't done well because I was getting... my eye was constantly drawn to this fighting that I wasn't seeing play out as well as I should.
If they had blended it in a better way, like they're sneaking around behind a kung fu battle and occasionally a fist will ram through a door or something, that would have been great. And it would have been like comedic and fun and engaging. Nah, they just didn't.
And I mean, this movie has all kinds... This movie has tons of sex. It has tons of violent, really sort of well-placed slaughtering scenes, we'll say. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like things that these kinds of movies generally benefit from. But it has a love triangle of sorts. It has... You know, it has a lot of great actors and actresses in it. It's got Candice Yu and Kara Hui in it. Kara Hui plays a very minor character, but she's she's one of the few things that you can enjoy about the movie. And Candice Yu does a good job too. But
What's Kara Hui play in this one?
Oh, and Tony Leung is in it as well, but you barely see him. Kara Hui played the sister of the fisherman, the one of the assassins.
Yeah, she has a genuinely enjoyable performance. You're right. And then she dies. And we follow her brother, who has absolutely no screen presence. He's so frustrating.
Yeah, he's just kind of there. He's just kind of there. Which, again, maybe that's part of the point, because he's supposed to be a non-martial hero, and everybody else around him should be spectacular. But
if you make the stylistic choice to be lame, they're still lame.
Well, it's also... I think that stylistic choice could have worked if the direction was better. Do you know what I mean? I think there was just like the direction and the casting of the fisherman. I don't know. It just...
Well, you can be lame and still have presence in a movie.
Well, I feel like if another director had made this movie, it would have been good. Do you know what I mean? Beat for beat, I feel like it could have been made into a good movie.
I think that you would have still wanted to have fixed up a few things, like we were mentioning before the show starts, where one of the main villains has hypnosis powers that he can use, which he does once. It's a major plot point, and it's never established he can do that, and it's not described why he can do that, and it never comes up again, even though it would have been really useful to have used in the last fight where he dies.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
It on the kills him.
Yeah, I don't know what the parameters of that. I mean, that sort of thing, I'm not as... I mean, that's obviously a loose element of the film, but that's not something that troubles me the way that... just the overall feel of the... Like, okay, the worst thing this movie does is its song selection. It's got to have, without a question, the worst selection of music of any wuxia film I've ever seen.
It could have the best. There's a few times when... just out of nowhere, in the middle of the movie, again, atonally, this rock and roll riff starts drifting in over this one heavy metal character that throws these little sickle things. And just when that started, I was like, oh, this might be wonderfully hokey. I got to check this out. And like, nah, they only do it like twice,
Well,
and then they're done with that.
there's also a trace of it. They play some of the flute music that they played in Hero Shed No Tears at some of the tender moments, and that was kind of, you're like, okay, I'm kind of getting into this, but then they got that, like, okay, so surfer music totally works in Wuxia, right? Like that sort of that heavy reverb style guitar can clearly work in a Wuxia film. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, that works in a lot of action movies. So.
But they chose the completely wrong surfer music for Wuxia. I mean, there was a series of surfer music selections in here that were just completely misplaced. They were just they were in the wrong goddamn movie. You know what I mean? It was so frustrating to hear that music, and I can only assume that either the selection of music that was available to the director was just not there, that he was basically just forced to choose these things, or he just has bad taste in music. I don't know, but
I really get a feeling it's that second one. 'Cause I feel like this guy. I mean, like, because there's resources that were put into this movie. Like there's really good sets. The explosive climax has a lot of pyrotechnics. Like they put money in this thing. It was all misspent though, because the vision of this guy was so muddled and awful.
Well, and I think it was his first movie. So I mean, it might be just, it might be that, but like, yeah, everything, like the lighting didn't look right. You know what I mean? Like,
God, it was like you were looking through a Coke bottle instead of a camera lens. It was like desaturated and overexposed. It was awful looking.
Yeah, there was something really weird with the lighting, and like, I'm all for gratuitous scenes, but the sex scenes in this were just ridiculous. They
got boring.
Yeah.
Like, I should never be bored in a sex scene. But seriously, I was like looking at my watch, like, okay, wrap it the hell up. I get what's happening here, movie. Thank you, movie.
And it's weird because they included a lot of stuff purely for shock value, and I love movies like Corpse Mania and stuff that's built on shock, but this one, it was just too. It's like, now he's taking out the brand and he's gonna brand her, and now now there's this like gratuitous sex scene, and then the guy is gonna get bitten by a cobra, and then like it just was on and on, all this stuff.
What bothered me about those scenes wasn't so much that they were gratuitous and uninteresting and like kind of puerile, which is enough, I think, to just kind of do the opposite of recommending them. But like that they didn't go anywhere. They abandoned all that stuff, and it was never addressed again in the movie. Just like the mute girl who shows up. She shows up long enough to be in a love triangle, then leaves, and that's that. That happens over and over in this movie. Where it's just like, let's try to be another movie for a second. Nah, we're done now.
So I'm very torn on the whole middle section. On the one hand, it's like a really weird, strange departure from the rest of the film. On the other hand, it's kind of the only part of the movie that I actually enjoyed this second viewing. Which
part is that?
The part where you're dealing with him and the mute girl and her, in the love story with him and her.
It's the only cohesive part of the whole movie. Yeah. Everything else is just like this slap bang MTV editing. That's the only part where they settle down and put the tripod down and just, actually focus on something approaching a story.
Yeah.
But it's in the middle of the movie. They haven't established anything about this until this point. We were just getting to this point.
It's like a side trek. It's like it's between them losing the people that are trying to catch her so they can take her to the prince and meeting up with them again. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's just a little weird sidetrack, but I was just more interested in that than I was in the other parts of the movie. I think the first time I saw it, I was actually very annoyed by that part of the film. But this time, I think just knowing fully that it was a bad film all around, I was perfectly content to watch them in this house doing things with the eggs. There was some weirdness there.
The eggs. Oh my god.
The egg scene is very strange.
One of the mini egg scenes. That whole thing. has an obsession with eggs, where they're like going to nest and throwing eggs at each other, and they're finding some eggs. And then she cracks a bunch of eggs into a bowl, and then she throws the yolks everywhere. It's like, then he talks about eggs.
Yeah, because they're literally, like, in their gratuitous sex scene, they're pretty much, literally kind of making love in a nest, right? Because they're, like, on this pile of hay, which I thought looked really uncomfortable. That looked like the worst. She
doesn't look happy.
Yeah, that
she's on her belly, and, like, the camera keeps focusing on her, just, like, looking at the middle distance, like, just wrap it the hell up, dude. And I was like, I'm with you, sister. Wrap it up, dude. This is dull now.
It was, it was very straight, because it was obviously intended to be like a tender scene, right? Like, that was the, there's this whole thing where, like, there's this wind blowing on her, and her hair is all, moving.
Yeah, that's a really weird contrast, because it's intercut with her just sitting there, lying on her stomach, just looking completely bored while this extremely mild thrusting is happening. And then it'll cut to her, like, with this, like, she's lit from behind, and she's on top, I guess, of him, and the wind is blowing and her hair is going everywhere, and she's got this look on her face like, I am Goza! And it's the weirdest contrast.
It was a really strangely done love scene, for sure. But, like, they were definitely going for love. They were definitely trying to make it romantic, and they just didn't do it correctly.
Totally missed the mark.
And I think you're on to something with the egg theme, though. I think that stuff all ties together thematically.
What an awkward theme to put in,
And the love triangle was very strange too, because her jealous rages were kind of odd. Do you know what I mean? They were
and not established. Before that, like she was established as being unlucky, and she was a little spoiled and a little unlucky. And like when we get to the point where they're arguing over the mute girl who is in no way romantically interested in anybody. She's just kind of a bystander here. It really feels like they've been married for years, and this is an argument they've had before. It's totally different than anything else we've seen in the movie characterized. It's just a completely different set of writing. These characters don't seem like they would say this stuff.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I mean, and the thing that's odd about it is they did actually kind of have chemistry, the actors. Do you know what I mean? Like I believed them as a couple. That I didn't have any trouble with. But
when they were warm with each other, that there was a genuine chemistry there.
Yeah.
Again though, like if you told me that when they went to that cabin, the director had accidentally just found some other script and shoved it in the middle of his script, and they just started reading it and they just shot it, I would be like, okay, yeah, that would totally have explained this. That's how atonal it is.
Yeah, I feel like they were just like, we need 20 more minutes, so here's 20 more pages. And,
right, if that hadn't happened, if they just went there and it was like one scene, you're right, the movie would have been too short. So it really seems like maybe they were just like, just put some more stuff in there. Maybe they have eggs.
I mean, what I'm wondering is maybe this is just the kind of movie that, like, on paper it looked good because it's got like a little bit of a Gonzo vibe to it, and maybe, but just the way that it ended up, it was just not. It just was. I mean, it had moments. You know what I mean? It had
moments. And it had moments. It had characters that you can like, and that actually makes it more frustrating, not less. Because like the scenes with the princes were interesting. The characters of the prince, the costuming was good, and like their intrigue was fascinating. And those last for all of accumulated 3 minutes, maybe, of screen time. Both of them, both the really good ones, and like the other little stub one they have. And that's it. The girl with the little sides was cool as a character. She is introduced arm wrestling these dudes, and it's
that was a great scene. That was
wonderful.
Yeah. No, if we had more, I really feel like they should have fully committed to the sword and sorcery thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, because there was a definite sort of Conan, Beastmaster sort of vibe to the movie, and I would have welcomed going to that world with this director. Do you know what I mean? But we didn't go there. We got a taste of it. You know what? I'll tell you exactly. Actually, this movie, in a way, it's sort of a successful sword and sorcery movie, because what it does do is it completely repeats the experience I had as a kid of going to the video store and seeing this glorious. Like, did you grow up with any VHSs at all, or were VHS?
Yeah, I'm an old man.
Okay,
much like you.
All right, so you remember how big the VHS cassette tape covers used to be on the at the
Oh,
video
yeah.
store, and
Glorious.
and they would have these gorgeous pictures of like a guy with a sword and a beautiful woman and like a dragon and like a castle and some great epic battle going on in the background, right? And then you watch the movie,
Yeah.
and it's like made in like Southern California, and like you can practically see the cars moving in the background,
Right, and there's like crappy paper mache monsters and
Yeah.
like a bunch of people who are rejects from American Gladiators who don't know their lines. And it's just like, oh, how wretched.
Yeah. So I think this sort of does that by sort of having the promise of something, and then it just never delivers
So
it to you.
realizes, oh, but it was so close to delivering. It really was. Because the stuff that was sword and sorcery was freaking rad.
Yeah.
It makes the egg scene so much more intolerable to me. I don't understand how you could have enjoyed that. Like, I want the movie to get back to being stupid again. 'Cause I like it when it's stupid. It's not stupid enough.
Well, and I mean also just on the sword and sorcery angle, like the costuming was unique as a result of that, right? Like you don't see that many wuxia movies that have that kind of costuming. So it I don't know, but it just never came together for whatever reason. And there's another part of the movie too that kind of drives me crazy: the fortune telling scene where she accidentally sets a pavilion on or a tent on fire, and
I thought she did that on purpose.
yeah, well, on purpose and on accident. It was kind of it was sort of like I don't think she realized how out of control things were going to get. But that was just a really weird scene. And
It was really weird. Didn't she steal a horse? Where did that horse go?
I
Wait a minute. She rides out of that scene on a horse. Where the hell did that horse go?
don't even remember how the scene ends. So I just don't watch it
the
again.
next scene. They forget about a whole horse.
But it's got this great like any other movie I've seen that like begins in a brothel like this, right? And ends with like a grand slaughter at the brothel like it does. That's going to propel that's just sort of like the making of a great opening to a wuxia film, right? You can see it.
It had promise.
Yeah, but it everything was handled very strangely. It just didn't work. And so I don't know. It was. I mean, I guess part of it too is this is a much later film. I'm not sure actually if it's 85 or 84 because I think the movie actually said 84, but according to Hong Kong Movie Database, it's 85. So if anybody happens to know the answer to that, they could certainly comment and let us know. But yeah,
that's a vital piece of info right there.
I'm sorry.
That's a vital chunk of information.
Well,
see, okay. After the brothel, after everyone's slaughtered, and she goes and meets the fisherman and everything. Okay, that was exactly the opportunity this movie needed to not make the worst decision it made, which was to make people who can't fight and aren't interesting the main characters. You can do C-3PO and R2-D2. Maybe you can use that as a framing device.
Yeah.
But that framing device was that they weren't interesting characters. They were talking about the interesting characters. R2-D2 is like kind of narrating the story of Luke Skywalker and Leia and Han Solo, all these cool characters. The problem is we as an audience aren't always following R2-D2.
Yeah.
If he was portrayed as the main character, we'd be bored. And indeed, that's what happened here. Because these other interesting martial characters, their stories were about the R2-D2 character, about getting her back to the place where she had to go for the respective reasons of the different warring princes. But if that was the central story, it would have been super interesting. Instead, we go and make eggs for like a good 30 minutes in this movie, and like all of my interest just dies during these turgid lovemaking scenes, these pointless love triangles, these uninteresting montages with bad music. Ugh, give me the barbarian that can hypnotize me with his mind laser, okay? That came to the movie for.
I didn't mind the fact they decided to follow non-martial characters. What I minded was that it was they didn't use it well. Like the thing that does is that immediately makes you feel like the characters are in much more peril than they otherwise would be, right? Like if it's T. Lung and he's super good at wielding a sword, you're not too worried for him when a bunch of bad guys show up. But with this guy, I'm worried at every moment when bad guys, or even sometimes good guys, show up, right? Because he can't fight worth a damn. And I liked that he had this sort of fisherman's skill set, this survival skill set, that he was able to use at one point to outwit the the heroes that were trying to capture the princess, right? But they just didn't fall. They didn't apply that enough with the character. Like you could have still had interesting scenes involving him trying to outmaneuver the bad guy, right, and using his resourcefulness to do it. But when we get to that final battle, he and the girl are just randomly running around as the place is. Okay, so we should talk about this final battle. So number one,
the final battle deserves comment, if for nothing else than by the infinite series of explosions.
So the bad guy is killed by his former lover, right? Like 10 minutes before the movie's over, I think. 8 or 10 minutes before the movie is even done, I think. But he sets off an explosive device before he dies, right? Or actually, no, he's actually finally killed by the fisherman, isn't he? Because the fisherman finishes him off.
Yeah, he is mortally wounded and laying face down in a puddle of his own blood.
Yeah. And
he sets off this device. Several minutes later, he is finally finished off by the fisherman. But that is almost immaterial.
And so this weird explosive setup that he has starts blowing everything up. The characters, once this begins, are in a perfectly safe spot where they could just run the heck out of there. And in fact, there are multiple moments where they're in perfectly safe places where they could just run to the woods.
They could sleep.
Yeah,
or
they could just
stay
leave
where they are and stop moving.
Yeah,
because they're completely safe.
Yep. But instead, they keep running into danger for inexplicable reasons, or reasons that are just weird, or suddenly you have characters that are being more aggressive towards each other than they should be. It just didn't make a lot of sense. I understood why there was still conflict between the good heroes and the non-martial hero characters, but in the middle of an explosion, it seems like that's not the good time to deal with that conflict. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it really feels like they could have walked gently away from the eternally exploding death trap, and then as that's blowing up in the background, they could just hash out their differences over some eggs. And you know what? That would have been a great ending to this movie. If they're like, hey, this whole place is exploding. Why don't we just leave? The fisherman's like, why don't we just go out this open door that's here that isn't burning? Let's see what happens. And they just walk out, and it's still blowing up in the background. And he's like, I still have some eggs. Let's talk about our differences. Wouldn't that have been amazing?
Well, I'm fine with where they wanted to go. I don't like how they got there. And I don't like that once they got there was no... I didn't like... Normally when I see a scene like this where it's like, ooh, the lover's suicide for principle or whatever, right? And there's flames and all the... there'd normally be so much emotion in that scene, and there just wasn't any. And I feel like the reason why is because they kill off the bad guy too soon. Do you know what I mean? Because they have this additional story they're trying to tell about the bad guy and his lover, the Candace Yu character. And it would have been better if the bad guy had stuck around and they were being chased through the exploding scenery in much more logical ways by the bad guy and the good guys. And when they were up on that tower, there was some amount of dialogue where they made clear, if we, on the one hand, there's the guy who wants to kill you, on the other hand, there's the people that want to rescue you, but both of those result in us not being able to have our love or something, so we'll just die together.
Been hard to change the writing such as that it was compelling.
Yeah.
But you're right. They really just walk to the top of an exploding tower. Then they just turn to the camera wait, why did we do this? Oh, well, time to die. Then they die. And it's so flat.
And what's very funny about that is this ending, I remembered the ending, but I did not remember it was the ending of this movie. This is an ending that I've noted in my mind and have been, sort of among the bad endings of movies that I've seen. But I had completely forgotten that it was the ending of Journey of the Doomed. So when we get to this scene, I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. Oh, don't tell me that we're going to be walking up that tower in 10 minutes, because I don't want to see that again. That was one of the worst endings I ever saw. And, sure enough, that's what it was. So,
oh, man. How glorious. How glorious you got to relive this nightmare with me.
It's been a couple of years at least since I've seen this one, I think, so...
I own this now. This is going to be one of those movies, like The Room, where I invite people over to hate it with me. I'm like, you gotta fucking see this movie.
Yeah, I saw it, and I talked about it on the video blog. So it had to have been 3 or 4 years ago now that I'm thinking about it. But
really...
yeah, So that would have been the last time I had seen it. But yeah, it's just not a good movie. And I thought maybe there was like a possibility of redemption in, for at least for me as a viewer. But when I saw it again, no.
There are individual things that could have been cool and almost were.
Yeah, I liked the actors in the movie, right? Who was it?
It's pretty good talent in this one.
Yeah, Fu Yin Yu. I guess she's only been in like 2 other films, but I thought she was very charming in that as the princess character.
She was okay.
Yeah.
She was actually a reasonably compelling character.
And Fei Xia, the Candice Yu character, was wonderful, right?
Yeah, she was really good.
So, in fact, she kind of carries the movie in a way, because Kara Hoy's already dead by spoiler. She's already dead, like, after the first 15 minutes of the film.
Every minute with Kara Hoy is really entertaining. The whole slaughter at the brothel and all that stuff. Like, she has good chemistry with her little co-host lady.
Yeah.
She's got a good presence. Like, she's a really good physical actor. So, like, she's really fun.
Yeah, and she's a bad guy. She gets to be a bad guy in this one.
So be a bad guy, which is fun. She gets to be a bad guy with this complication of just having this lame fisherman for a brother.
Who
which
rescues...
is a fun scene until she dies.
And her brother rescues the princess, which gives Kara Hoy an opportunity to change sides. And it's kind of a,
Yeah.
It's nice. That part of the movie's nice, but...
Yeah, she has a satisfactorily brutal death, which is kind of cool. The prosthetic on that looks really good. Really, the gore in the movie is kind of cool. And, like, I'm not usually one to complain about gratuitous nudity and sex scenes. Like, I did like Ninja Scroll. That isn't the reason I like Ninja Scroll, but, like...
I like Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. It's not about the presence of sex scenes. It's that the sex scenes were terrible. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the issue. Yeah.
Like, because you can do them well. You can do them tastefully, or you can do them like Tommy Wiseau would do them, which is what this movie did.
Yeah, it just was. I don't know the way things were done. They were just weird. He's the guy who did, what was the name of that movie? The director you just mentioned.
Tommy Wiseau?
Yeah, what was the movie that he did?
The Room.
The Room. That's the one that. You're exactly right on that. That's exactly the. That's the exact kind of sex scene that this was. It was exactly like it might not have had the there's some really weird things going on in that scene that might not have been present here, but otherwise it's all right exactly in that category.
There is much that goes on in Tommy Wiseau's The Room.
Yeah.
It's actually such an awful movie that, like, it's kind of a masterpiece. Like, I watch that movie nowadays, and, like, I'm still, to this day, just totally baffled by what I'm seeing. And there are moments in this movie, and I'm thinking very specifically of the egg-breaking scene, where I was just, like, baffled. Like, what am I freaking watching?
But
Same exact reaction.
This doesn't even rise up to the level of a good, bad movie, though, because it's like, the quality is too good. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not places, bad enough. It's just at the level where it's just a bad movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't even... I didn't have an ounce of fun watching it this time around.
I had a couple of ounces of fun, but they were enough to make me hate it more. Because again, like, when your main villain is using his rainbow laser mind power to hypnotize you, I was, like, on board with that scene. I was like, okay, now we're getting into it. This is going to be cool. Not really. We don't do any more of that. I want more of that Battle Wizard stuff, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely in the realm of Battle Wizard and Holy Flame of the Martial World, but it just doesn't rise to the level of those movies. It's I just think it's just kind of this awful film.
We finally found a film that we both hate.
Yeah, and
wonderful, I guess.
Well, and I should say the reason that we did this was because we had noticed that either one of us liked a movie and one of us didn't, or we both liked a movie. We hadn't done a podcast where we both hated a movie. And so I said, well, I have a feeling that if we did Journey of the Doomed, we'd both agree that it was a bad movie.
There's so much to hate about this movie, man. Yeah. Like, this is what it sounds like whenever it's all yang. There's no yin-yang balance. It's not all yang. This is all yang.
Yeah.
It's all negative.
Yeah, this is. I mean, the listeners can probably tell there's not a lot of energy in the room because the movie was just so bad.
It
And
makes you feel bad after you watch
yeah,
it.
yeah. I
I
mean,
left this movie just saying like, oh, thank God I don't have to do that again.
what about in terms of gaming? Did it inspire you in any way to
What would
think
you?
about?
Here's my challenge. What could you possibly find in this that you'd want to put in a game? Because like my urge is to take any of the things that have potential and realize the potential. Like the guy who can hypnotize people, that's great. I want that. I want that visual effect of the rainbow laser coming out of somebody's head in the description of like what is effectively a charmed person or hypnotized power. That's wonderful. I wouldn't want to do that to a player, but I would love to do that. Like have one of their NPCs that's friendly to them, secretly programmed by an evil fight wizard. Cool.
I think the background stuff and the two princes sending out two different teams could totally
Ooh
work
yeah,
in a
that
game.
stuff.
So you could definitely take that and come up with a plot that involves some sort of MacGuffin that the party is also interested in for whatever reason, or maybe one of the party members is the MacGuffin. Who knows? You know what I mean? I don't know.
One of them is the MacGuffin, or they're under orders to get the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Great classic plot there. And actually, pointing that out, I loved the aesthetic of the princes. They were cool. I love that stuff. Like the aesthetic of like these really put together, all silk robe wearing like Chinese prince guys. I love that look so sincerely. That is such a cool style, and it looked really neat in the movie. So like, I want to put those dudes, the two warring princes, in a campaign at some point. Yeah, that's good. All right, keep it rolling.
Also, I think the explosion you could use. I think the explosion idea as a threat can work in a game, but you would want it to be a little bit more logical than the way it was handled in the movie.
Yeah, you gotta. If they were in the middle of an enclosed area and there was a bunch of what was effectively timed explosions going off in weird sequences, I mean, it's actually kind of cool. Yeah, you could do that. Like an arcade bad guy who like makes elaborate traps for them. All right.
Yeah, or
Okay,
an exploding dungeon or something. Just some sort of.
Make it an actively exploding dungeon. Yeah. Okay. Cool. That's good. The Conan girl with the size or the sickles. She was great.
Yeah, that was fine.
She's mostly aesthetic. There's not much else to her, but okay, I'll steal that aesthetic.
I mean, basically bring in like barbarian style characters, right? Like something that's a little bit more. Like I don't know exactly where these martial heroes were supposed to come from. I don't know if it was like a sect that just kind of had that outfit and gear.
It was like a Western Plains kind of Mongolian theme, like they're the barbarians from beyond the wall kind of vibe. I think that's what they were going for because like culturally that would be where they'd get barbarians in China.
No, that's true, but like they didn't have the look of like usually the Mongols have the fur caps or whatever in these movies.
Well, the one main bad guy was wearing fur.
Did he? Okay, that's all right.
So that's where my mind went. Is like, oh, okay, so I get what they're doing there.
Okay,
okay. They did something like that in Legends of the Wulin with their quote unquote barbarians, and I thought that was neat.
But yeah. So I mean, I guess you could, I don't know, have characters like that in the setting, but I don't know. This is a hard movie, I think, to really turn into a game because it doesn't make you very excited. Do you know what I mean? Like
There's
normally,
a lot of examples of what not to do.
Yeah.
Like, don't have a character show up who literally can't talk just to create unnecessary romantic complications for characters. Don't do that. That's terrible. Who would do that? Don't abandon entire plot threads and seemingly important characters without any explanation. Don't do that. Why would you do that? You had a compelling characters, and the movie just walked away from them. Don't do that. There's just a lot of stuff like that. There is one thing I would like to steal though that is bad in the movie, but is hilarious in games, which is encourage your players when their enemies are fighting each other to leave. To just be like, you know what, guys, we don't have to go in there. There's no need to wade in. Let's just get their treasure and run away.
That's a valid point. Also, encouraging players to use poisonous snakes the way the princess character did is
She did that a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Poison snakes recurred in the movie.
I think there were 2 poison snake deaths in the movie, or 2 poison snake bitings. I don't know.
Wait, okay, no, there was a poison snake biting that did not result in a death.
Yeah, he didn't die.
And then there was a non-poison snake bite that didn't result in a death? Later on?
I remember there was another snake bite at some point, right?
What's the other snake bite?
I'm not 90% sure there was another snake bite at some point in this movie.
I feel like you're right. I don't remember where, because I don't remember who got bit.
Didn't somebody got executed by snakes, right? Was it one of the Prince scenes, or did the bad guy just kill somebody that way? I remember there being somebody who was
did kill someone. Yeah, Prince kicked the messenger into the pit where a snake bit him.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, it was that kind of scene. It was the classic sort of fantasy thing where the messenger gets killed type situation.
I like that rule so much. I've been toying with the idea of making a rule that is called Foolish Courtesan or something like that, and putting it into the denouement scenes in Tiansheng, because denouement scenes are the GM will now reveal to you a little bit of what's going to happen in the next session scenes, and so it's a chance to kind of take the camera off the characters and just be like, and meanwhile in the chambers of the evil, so and so, this is happening, and that's really for the benefit of the players more as an audience than as interactors with the world. But it's like those scenes are always that, where it's like some messenger or courtier asks some question that they should really know the answer to. So the main bad guy kicks them into a snake pit or some similar thing and explains to them for the benefit of the audience what their evil plan is as they're getting eaten by snakes. So I was thinking about naming the rule after that trope because I love it so much.
So is the denouement flash forward something where...
It's more like what if we cut to look at what the villain was doing? So it's the players as an audience interested in the machinations of the bad guys.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I might not do that. That might be a little too removed and artificial, but I love the idea so much.
I get what you're saying. I'd have to see it in action to sort of know exactly how it feels.
Okay, when you wrap up a session and you're done for the evening and the players are asking kind of metagame based questions about what was that bad guy gonna do or something along those lines. Well, this is just your opportunity to actually describe a little scene happening.
Is that how you explain it in the book, or is that not how you?
It's pretty much how I explain it in the book. Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna say, make sure you explain it that way in the book if you can. But you're running that for us, aren't you? Aren't we doing that next week?
Yes, that's the thing.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get to see the denouement in action. Denouement. Sorry.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right. It's French.
I'm not.
Literally pronouncing it the way I heard it pronounced on the Tick cartoon from the early 90s.
I'm going to say the Tick is... I'm guessing that any amount of pronunciation of French words is going to be very exaggerated, but I don't know if that means that you're more right than I am in this case. So, Well,
even the writers of that show admitted within the writing of that show that they only spoke college French. So, I think they recognize their limitations with the language.
But yeah, I think. I think yeah. So we'll report on that though. We'll talk about the Tuesday session after we have that, and yeah. Again, is there anything else you want to add before we roll it out? Any final
I hate
thoughts?
this movie. Never watch Journey of the Doomed. Spare yourselves.
Yeah, it's Journey of the Doomed.
Do something really ridiculous like Battle Wizards next, so I can watch this out of my mental palate, please.
You know what's funny? I'm not a big Battle Wizards fan, actually.
Well, you're to suck it up, aren't you, Davis?
I know. I'm not. I don't hate the movie. It just doesn't connect with me the way some of the other Gonzo stuff does. But we'll watch something decent for sure.
Thank you.
You know what we should watch? We should watch the Heroic Trio if we can get it. Well, no, because no, we don't want to do that. Another podcast has already tackled that, and I don't think we need to cover the same.
Well, actually, the reason I mentioned Battle Wizards is because just a second, let me pull something up while I'm talking to you because I'm the king of being professional. On my Discord, there's some folks who have their own little Wuxia themed podcast, and they did a review of it, and I was like, oh, I gotta watch that. Oh, yeah. It got me really excited to watch it.
Okay. Well, if you want to, we can. If you want to, we can watch.
Let me name drop them because they were really.
It's John Who Hustle, right?
What's that?
John Who Hustle, right?
Yeah. Eli Kurtz is the guy. He's on the Discord now. So
Yeah,
There's a
no.
little from my Discord and John Who Hustle, which, by the way, is very entertaining. That wasn't the only episode I listened to.
No, that podcast is why I didn't want to do Heroic Trio, because they like literally just did Heroic Trio like a week ago, and I'm like, well,
Right,
you know, probably not. We don't. I don't think it's an obscure movie. I don't think there need to be two Wuxia gaming podcasts that tackle it. But Battle Wizards is a much more well-known film, and at least for Wuxia fans, I think. And also, I think they covered that a while ago, right? So it's probably
yeah, that was a bit ago. I had to dig through their library for a while. I was like, which one of these do I want to watch? And like, as soon as I saw that one and the word Gonzo under it, I was like, yeah, I'm sold.
Okay, yeah, maybe, and it's probably one I should see again, because I don't know if my judgment of it has been fair. So maybe I'll watch it and I'll have a different opinion.
We gotta go really Gonzo with the episode and watch Battle Wizards and then Ralph Bakshi's Wizards at the same time.
I don't know if I can do that to get. That's,
you can.
That's
Come on, man.
I'm still recovering from the time that I watched The Thing with no heat in my house. Remember, last year, was that last winter? You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
You remember we did The Thing, right? You remember that we did a whole podcast on The Thing, right?
I do remember that.
And so
we did do that. I barely remember it.
My heat went out that morning, I think, and so by evening it was freezing. It was like it was terribly cold outside that winter, and I'm sitting there watching The Thing in my winter coat with like freezing to death basically while I'm watching. It added so much to the movie. So I don't know why I brought that up, but.
Neither do I, but that's a great memory. Yeah. I'm glad we visited that together.
Yeah. So anyways, but I don't intend to do any. I think Battle Wizards, and then if we want to do Ralph Bakshi's Wizards, I'm happy to do it. But I would like to do it on a separate occasion. I think.
It's gotta be the same one. Come on, man. Be a man.
The problem is it's going to confuse me. I'm gonna get Battle Wizard and Ralph Bakshi's Wizards confused, and that's just not a good thing to do for a podcast, because they shouldn't be confused. One of them's a cartoon, one of them's not. But I would confuse them. So all right, so we're gonna let everybody go, and we will be back next time, I guess, maybe with the battle. Is Battle Wizard on Prime?
Yes, that's one of the reasons I suggested it, because I saw that. I was like, I don't want to mess up my palate. I want to watch Journey of the Doomed kind of purely, and then I'll watch Battle Wizards afterwards. And like, as long as I'm going to watch it, we might as well talk about it. Oh hell, you know what I didn't do? I released Chan Sheng and didn't even like plug it on this whole episode.
Well, we can plug it now, but we're probably not going to reach too many people. But why don't you go ahead and plug that?
For those of you still listening, I actually did release Chan Sheng Act 1, which is alternatively called Journey to the Western Regions and Ascent. It's a little intro adventure. It's pay what you want, so feel free to grab it for free. Or if you are one of those incredibly generous people that gave me money for it, thank you. Please need to do that. It's going to be used to buy art, probably. It's great. You get to be either Tripitaka, who is a cloned monk of the Maitreya, who's like the Buddha in the future, and you have magic and lightning. Or you can be Sun Wukong the Monkey King, who is a genetic experiment monster, and in either event you get to climb on top of a mountain and fight evil robots. It's the best.
It's a really cool setting. I think I would just add, anybody that buys it and decides that they really like it, you should definitely write a review of it on RPG Now if you got the PDF, or just help spread the love on Twitter and Facebook and places like that, because when you're operating at the level of publishing that Joel and I are operating at, that is super important. And I think that it's just good to spread the word if you enjoy something, because it's going to mean Joel will make more games like that. If you let people know about it, then you will get more games like that. If you keep your mouth shut, then who knows what'll happen.
Be loud, be rude, tell everybody how great it is. I know I want to hear that. And if you have genuine criticism, please let me hear that too, because I've already gotten some really good feedback on it that's going to be used to do another editing pass, so we can update the document. So yeah, any feedback is welcome.
And with that, we will let you go, and we will be back next time with Battle Wizard.
for your